now let's put some of the skills that we've been learning to the test and color in an image. So I've got this hydrangea image here that I'm coloring. I am going to color one flower at a time. I'm doing that light color first, then I'm going to go in and put the dark color in the center of the flower. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to blend right over that, right where the dark and the light meet, and then I'm going to go finish the flower off. Another one right here. The fun thing with the hydrangea is because there's so many different color combinations, you can practice with different colors within the same petal, within the same flower, sorry. And smaller areas are definitely a little bit easier to be practicing your blending on, especially when you are starting out. Okay, here, let's have a little bit of fun with it. I'm gonna do the feathering technique and we're gonna go pink on the inside. And then we're gonna go from the outside in and we're gonna do the blue. And this is where I was saying it's fun to do it with hydrangeas because within the same flower there's a few different, you can find a few different looks within the petals. Back and forth as much as you want. And as it dries, it's going to blend a little bit more as well. Let's do another one with this one. And for the feathering, it really doesn't matter which color you start with, whether you start with the pink or whether you start with the blue, it doesn't matter. You're going back and forth between the two colors and they're going to blend together anyways. Let's do one more with the pink and blue, and then I think I'm going to leave the rest of them just the blue colors. And I'm doing a simple color palette with this. You could, if you wanted, choose a bunch of different blue shades within the same color family, just to add a little bit more depth with the flower. But I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible for starting out. Let's go back to the blue. For this one here, because these petals go underneath those other ones, I'm going to add some shading in there because those would be a little bit darker right there. And then same right here, these would all be a little bit darker because they're going behind another. Between these flowers because that definitely wouldn't be just white in there. And you may have noticed I just went and just did the dark color with this one instead of doing the light one first. You can do that. Might take a little bit longer to blend it in a little bit, but when you're doing two colors from the same color family, you can do it. And as it dries, the colors tend to blend together a little bit more as well. A little bit of dark in there. They use this image here with these lines. It kind of tells you where the shading is going to be. So it does make it a little bit easier. So you don't have to really figure it out for yourself. couple more and we've got the flowers done, and then we'll do the leaves quickly, and then we'll assemble it into a quick card. Little white spots in there that we'll just color in, although if I remember correctly, they do have little white bits inside hydrangeas. All right, so I've got two different greens here that I'm going to color in my leaves with. One second, gotta get my brush tips. And again, same as the flowers, the leaves with the lines, it kind of tells you exactly where the shading is going to be. And that's going to be right below where the leaf goes under the petals. Then I'm going to take my light color, circular motions where the dark and the light meet in order to blend those together. Funny thing is, I tried these markers before doing this, making sure that they had enough ink in it, and this one looked like it did, but it clearly doesn't. I would recommend, if you get into Copic markers, to purchase the refills for the ones that you use a lot, because there's nothing worse than being in the middle of a project and having your marker go dry. We happen to have a place in town that we can get them refilled at, so colors that don't necessarily get used regularly, I can get them refilled there, but I have a stash of all the colors that I use quite often, my favorite colors, because it's so handy to be in the middle of a project, have a marker go a little bit dry, and just be able to refill, even if it's just a couple drops while you're working. It just makes it so handy. So those leaves clearly went a lot quicker than the flowers. I'm going to just a little bit of the dark green on the stem and a little bit of dark green on this leaf here. And one little tip that I tend to do on my images is I take this C1, which is a cool gray, I just outline it. And it's this color here, once it dries, it's very, very subtle. You can't, basically someone has to tell you it's there for you to actually really see that it's there. But it tends to it puts a little shadow behind the image, and it tends to make the image just kind of pop on your card. And again, it's one of those things that until someone tells you it's there, you don't even really notice it. And typically I would usually be a little bit more careful than that, but you can go over the colors of your image and it's not going to make a difference because it's such a light color. It's not going to change it, but it tends to just pop the image right off of the card. So then I'm not going to glue it right now because this video is getting a little bit longer than I like to, but I'm going to glue my card together like this. And then my last step is I'm going to put a little bit of stickles in each one of those flowers. Just so that there's a tiny little bit of sparkle in the card. Once it dries, it's going to go down and it's going to be a little bit more subtle, but it's just going to add just a little bit of sparkle to the front of the card. You could add like a ribbon around there if you wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it as is. And there we go. Finished card with our Copics.